Keep Hope Alive, How Jesse Jackson's 1988 run exposed racism and reshaped Democratic politics. The Reverend Jesse L. Jackson Sr., the civil rights leader who spent decades pushing the country on voting rights, economic justice, and equal opportunity, died Tuesday at 84 at his home in Chicago, his family said. In the hours after the news, tributes rolled in from across politics and the civil rights community, many returning to the same idea Jackson made famous on the campaign trail: hope isn't a feeling, it's work. But to understand why Jackson's legacy still lands with such force, you have to revisit the presidential run that made Keep Hope Alive more than a slogan. A morning in West Virginia that stripped away the mask. Karen Tumulty, who covered Jackson's 1988 campaign as a young reporter, recalls a day in Arnett, West Virginia, when a local voter, asked about the upcoming Democratic primary, answered with an explicitly racist slur and a refusal to vote for a black candidate. Tumulty describes similar epithets the night before and a moment tense enough that the Secret Service discouraged Jackson from working the crowd the way he usually did. Later, on the campaign bus, Jackson told reporters that the most consequential barriers were not always the overt ones. Some people, he argued, were raw and direct. Others were better at disguising their racism, able to use sand to cover up their mess, he said. The line landed because it named a reality that still echoes in modern campaigns. Prejudice doesn't always announce itself. The obstacles inside the party, subtle, strategic, and structural. Tumulty's account also highlights Jackson's frustration with what he saw as an establishment effort to shape the Democratic field toward a more moderate nominee. Jackson blamed a headwind of media narratives, punditry, and party power, arguing that the party machinery was working to produce the candidate it believed could win. He was especially bitter about the Democrats' rising centrist wing and the way the 1988 primary calendar was designed. Jackson believed it advantaged moderates and steered momentum toward candidates like Senator Al Gore. And when a report surfaced that Pontiac, the Secret Service code name assigned to him, doubled as the punchline of an old racist joke, Jackson's orbit didn't accept the agency's explanation that it was merely random coincidence. What Jackson achieved anyway. Despite those headwinds, Jackson finished second to eventual nominee Michael Dukakis, staying in the race through the final primaries and winning 7 state primaries and 4 caucuses, drawing about 7 million votes. It wasn't enough to win the nomination, but it was enough to change the party. Jackson argued, even as ballots were still being counted, that the message has already won, insisting opponents were borrowing the themes and visibility he forced into the contest. The broader arc supports that claim. AP notes that Jackson's 2 runs redefined what was possible and helped raise the lid for future candidates, including women and candidates of color. A bridge between King's era and the modern coalition. Jackson was a protege of Martin Luther King Jr. and positioned himself as a national successor figure after King's assassination, building institutions and campaigns that pressed corporations and governments to open doors that remained closed. Through groups like Rainbow/Push, he tied civil rights to jobs, education, healthcare, and representation, and paired moral rhetoric with practical pressure. That blend, movement energy plus inside the system leverage, became a template. CBS News, summarizing tributes and reflections, notes that Jackson's presidential bids were seen as part of the freedom struggle, helping connect the post-1960s movement era to what would later become the Obama era. The tributes, mentor, trailblazer, the people's champion. The condolences arriving Tuesday weren't generic. They were specific, and often personal. Al Sharpton called Jackson his mentor, describing him as a transformative leader and crediting him with shaping public policy and changing laws. CBS also quoted Sharpton recalling Jackson's ability to make people believe, and pledging to keep hope alive. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries honored Jackson as a legendary voice for the voiceless, a powerful civil rights champion, and a trailblazer extraordinaire, CBS reported. Kamala Harris described Jackson as one of America's greatest patriots, emphasizing the coalitions he built and how his campaigns energized people across lines of race and class. Together, those tributes framed Jackson the way his supporters always did, not just as a historical figure but as a builder, someone who expanded the imagination of what American politics could look like, and who insisted that dignity belonged to everyone. The legacy question: symbolism, or something bigger? Tumulty's recollection is blunt about the way Jackson's achievements were sometimes minimized, even inside his own party. She points to later moments, including debates around Barack Obama's rise, where some voices tried to treat black political victories as predictable or narrow. Yet Jackson's presence at Obama's 2008 victory rally, and his appearance at the 2024 Democratic Convention in Chicago, even as illness robbed him of speech, underscored a through line: symbolic races can still be structurally consequential. Jackson's 1988 run didn't just keep hope alive. It exposed how openly, and how quietly, America could resist change, while proving that coalition politics could still move the ground beneath a party's feet.